When humanity's lone ambassador walks weaponless into a galactic tribunal designed to humiliate them, the assembled alien powers expect surrender. What they get instead is something far more terrifying, proof that humans don't need weapons, because they are the weapon. As Earth's survival protocol activates and biology becomes warfare, one cynical alien observer realizes too late that evolution's cruelest joke isn't about who has the biggest gun, but who can become one. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't technology. It's adaptation with a grudge. Listen, I've seen my share of species walk into the Convergence Hall over the last 4 centuries. Proud ones, desperate ones. The kind that strut in with 12 armed guards and enough firepower to vaporize a moon. But I have never, and I mean never, seen anyone walk in like Vesper Wilde did that day, empty-handed. No guards, no weapons, not even a ceremonial blade tucked in her boot, just this human female in a plain grey suit, hair pulled back, walking across that obsidian floor like she owned the place. The audacity of it made my secondary spine shiver. Is she serious? Krelanine hissed beside me, his mandibles clicking in confusion. We were seated in the observer gallery, far enough from the action to feel safe, but close enough to see every detail. Below us the tribunal of 5 high arbiters sat on their elevated platform, looking down at the human like she was a particularly interesting insect. She's either supremely confident or supremely stupid, I muttered back, adjusting my ocular implants for a better view. The human stopped at the center marker, didn't bow, didn't grovel, just stood there, hands loose at her sides, and waited. High Arbiter Thexel spoke first, his voice booming through the hall's acoustic enhancers. Vesper Wilde of Earth. You stand accused of violation of Sector 7 non-interference protocols, unauthorized mining operations in protected zones, and the destruction of 3 Carrion patrol vessels. Correction, Vesper said, her voice calm as morning frost. 2.5 Carrion vessels. The third one just sort of fell apart on its own. Shoddy engineering, probably. Oh, this was going to be good. Krell9 made a choking sound. Around us the gallery erupted in scandalized whispers. You don't mock the Corians. They're one of the Convergence's founding species, with enough military might to glass a continent before breakfast. Thegzel's face, already an unsettling shade of purple, darkened further. You dare to jest before this tribunal? I dare to tell the truth, Vesper replied. Something I've noticed isn't particularly popular around here. I leaned forward, fascinated despite myself. Humans had only been on the galactic stage for about 60 years. Newcomers, barely past their own planetary squabbles. And yet here was this one, treating the most powerful judicial body in 12 systems like it was a minor inconvenience. The evidence is clear, Arbiter Vex Loon interjected, her crystalline features refracting light in sharp angles. You were warned, multiple times. Your species continues to expand, to consume, to take without asking. Now you will face consequences. Consequences, Vesper repeated, tasting the word. Right. And what consequences did the Carrions face when they strip-mined Helios 3? Or when the Vex Ixcari wiped out the entire luminal species because they wanted their home system? Just curious about the consistency of justice here. Dead silence. Nobody talked about those incidents. They were filed under unfortunate necessities and buried in bureaucratic archives deeper than a black hole's event horizon. You overstep, Vexal growled. We did not bring you here to debate ethics. We brought you here to witness your species' punishment. Since you cannot follow the rules, Earth will be placed under embargo. No trade, no travel. Total isolation for the next 1,000 cycles. 1,000 cycles. That would cripple humanity's expansion. Set them back millennia. I waited for the human to break, to beg, to show some emotion. Instead, she smiled. Not a happy smile. The kind of smile a predator gives right before it strikes. That's unfortunate, Vesper said softly. I really hoped we could resolve this diplomatically. But I suppose you've made your choice. We have made no choice, Vexloon snapped. We have rendered judgment. Right, judgment. Vesper tilted her head slightly, Before you finalize that, I should probably inform you that about 3 minutes ago, Earth's Strategic Defense Protocol was activated. See, we have this funny little system. If our ambassador is threatened, detained or subjected to what we call hostile judicial overreach, certain safeguards kick in automatically. Thexel waved a dismissive appendage. Empty threats. You came here unarmed. Your ship is powered down in our docking bay. You have no leverage. That's where you're adorable, Vesper said, and her smile widened. You're thinking in terms of weapons, guns, bombs, technology. But you're forgetting something crucial about humans. And what is that? Thexel demanded. We don't need to bring weapons, she said quietly. We are weapons. I felt it then. A shift in the air. Something wrong. My survival instincts, honed over 4 centuries of avoiding trouble, started screaming at me to leave. On the tribunal platform, Arbiter Corthun suddenly jerked in his seat. His breathing apparatus, a sophisticated piece of tech that had kept him alive for 3,000 years, began making odd clicking sounds. What? He gasped, clawing at his throat. Oh, that, Vesper said, conversationally. That would be the nanoscale biological agents we've had cultivating in your ventilation system for the past 6 months. Completely dormant, harmless, until activated. They're quite selective, actually. Only target specific genetic markers, the kind that belong to, say, the 5 high arbiters currently sitting in judgment. Impossible, Vexloon choked out, her crystalline structure beginning to show stress fractures. We scanned everything, every molecule. You scanned for weapons, Vesper corrected. For metals, explosives, energy signatures. You didn't scan for modified Earth bacteria. Because why would you? It's just primitive organic matter, right? Except we've had a few decades to tinker with it. Turns out, life finds a way, especially when you give it very specific instructions. Thixol tried to stand but collapsed back into his seat. This is biological warfare. You'll be hunted across every system. Maybe, Vesper acknowledged. Or maybe you'll reverse your ridiculous embargo, issue a formal apology for this sham trial, and will administer the antidote we conveniently have prepared. Your choice. But I'd decide quickly. You've got about 4 minutes before permanent neurological damage sets in. The gallery exploded into chaos. Species was screaming, demanding action, calling for guards. But the guards were already rushing toward the tribunal platform, trying to assist the dying arbiters. Krell9 grabbed my arm. We need to leave, now. But I couldn't move. I was transfixed by the human standing calmly in the center of all that panic, hands still at her sides, expression neutral. She hadn't brought a weapon. She had turned herself into one. And as the realization hit me, I understood something that would haunt me forever. Humanity hadn't just joined the galactic community. They'd infiltrated it. 3 minutes and 40 seconds remained when Thexel finally broke. Stop this, he wheezed, his massive frame convulsing. Purple blood trickled from his auditory canals. We will negotiate. Vesper didn't move, didn't even blink. Negotiate implies both parties have something to offer. Right now you're just begging. I need clarity here. You reversing the embargo, yes or no? Yes, Vexloon screamed, her voice shattering into harmonic fragments as cracks spiderwebbed across her body. Yes, reversed, please. And the formal apology? Vexil's pride warred with his survival instinct for maybe half a second. Survival 1. Earth is hereby recognized as a sovereign entity with full convergence rights and protections. We apologize for judicial overreach. Now give us the cure. Vesper finally moved. She reached into her jacket pocket with deliberate slowness and pulled out a small metallic cylinder. 5 of them, actually, each no bigger than my smallest finger. She placed them on the floor and slid them forward with her boot. Inhale deeply, she instructed. The counter-agent works fast. You'll feel better in about 30 seconds. The guards scrambled to retrieve the cylinders, administering them to each arbiter. True to her word, the effects were almost immediate. Color returned to Vexel's face. Vexloon's fractures began sealing. Corthun stopped convulsing. The hall went quiet again. But this time the silence tasted different. It tasted like fear. "Let me clarify something," Vesper said into that silence, her voice carrying to every corner of the massive chamber. "Earth didn't want conflict. We came to the stars hoping for cooperation, partnership, maybe even friendship. What we found was a hierarchy built on intimidation, selective justice, and the assumption that being older means being superior." She turned slowly, addressing not just the tribunal but the entire packed gallery of observers. "You looked at humanity and saw primitives, newcomers to be tolerated at best, exploited at worst. You forgot to ask the important question, how did a species as young as ours survive long enough to reach the stars? What kind of evolution produces a race that went from stone tools to fusion drives in 10,000 years? Krell 9 was gripping the railing so hard his claws left gouges in the metal. "She's going to start a war," he whispered. But I understood now. She wasn't starting a war. She was ending one before it began. "I'll tell you what kind," Vesper continued. "The kind where everything wants to kill you. Where your own planet throws diseases, predators, climate disasters, and extinction events at you every few thousand years. We didn't develop technology in spite of danger. We developed it because we are danger. Because we had to become the apex predator of a world that really didn't want us to exist." She smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes. "Cold fire. You have your weapons platforms and energy shields, your dreadnoughts, and plasma cannons. Very impressive. Humanity has something better. We have 4 billion years of evolution screaming at us to survive at any cost. We have biology that adapts faster than your computers can calculate. And we have spite. Endless, creative, absolutely petty spite." A laugh bubbled up in my throat before I could stop it. Because she was right. Looking at humanity's history, the whole thing was basically spite-driven achievement. You say we can't fly. Watch this. You say we can't survive in space. Hold my fermented beverage. You say we need weapons to be dangerous. Cute. Arbiter Thexel had recovered enough to speak, though his voice lacked its earlier authority. "What do you want?" "Want?" Vesper raised an eyebrow. "I want you to leave us alone. I want fair trade agreements. I want Earth treated as an equal partner in the convergence, not a probationary member you can threaten whenever we bruise your ego. And I want it understood, really understood, that the next time someone tries to intimidate humanity, the response will be significantly less gentle." "This was gentle," Cawthon gasped. "You're all still alive, aren't you?" Vesper pointed out. "That's gentle by human standards. Trust me, you don't want to see what happens when we stop being polite." She let that hang in the air for a moment before continuing. "Here's the reality. You can accept humanity as we are, aggressive and adaptable, and occasionally insufferable, or you can keep trying to put us in our place. But I promise you, every single time you push, we will push back harder. We don't have centuries of tradition holding us back. We don't have bureaucratic red tape slowing our decisions. We have 7 billion angry primates who figured out nuclear fission before we figured out basic civil rights. We are chaos wrapped in skin, and we've spent our entire existence turning disadvantage into weapons." I watched the arbiters exchange glances. They were calculating, reassessing. Humanity had just gone from minor nuisance to legitimate threat in the span of 10 minutes. "The embargo is lifted," Thexal said formally. "Earth retains full convergence status. The charges are dismissed." "Excellent choice," Vesper said cheerfully. Her entire demeanor shifting like a switch had flipped. "I'm glad we could reach an understanding. Oh, and one more thing." She pulled out a data chip and tossed it to the nearest guard. "That contains detailed information about the biological agents we deployed today. Structure, delivery method, activation protocol, everything. Consider it a gift. Study it. Share it with your defense analysts. Let them lose sleep over it. Here's the thing about humans. We don't keep secrets about our capabilities. We advertise them. We want you to know exactly what we can do, because the fear of what we might do next is way more effective than actually doing it." The psychological warfare of it was beautiful, terrifying, but beautiful. Are we done here? Vesper asked. You are free to leave, Vexloon said stiffly. Wonderful. I have a transport to catch. Try not to schedule any more sham trials. They're tedious, and I have actual work to do. She turned and walked out the same way she came in. Calm, unhurried, empty-handed. Except she wasn't empty-handed anymore. She was carrying the entire Convergence's respect, fear, and grudging admiration. The moment she cleared the doors, the gallery erupted. Everyone was talking at once, demanding explanations, calling for emergency councils, predicting the end of galactic civilization. Krell 9 looked at me with his compound eyes wide. What just happened? Humanity happened, I said slowly. We thought we were the advanced ones. The civilized ones. Turns out we were just soft. They spent their whole existence fighting to survive while we spent ours maintaining systems and hierarchies. We forgot how to be dangerous. They're going to change everything, he said. They already have. I watched through the gallery windows as Vesper's transport lifted off, its engines leaving trails of light against the station's dark hull. Somewhere on that ship was a human who had just rewritten the rules of galactic diplomacy without firing a single shot. Later, much later, I would learn that the biological agents had been a bluff. Oh, the delivery system was real enough. The bacteria had been cultivating in the ventilation system, but they were harmless, completely inert. The symptoms the Arbiters experienced were caused by a fast-acting but temporary toxin Vesper had released from a device hidden in her clothing. The whole thing had been theater, but that almost made it worse. Because it meant humanity was not only dangerous, they were smart enough to make you believe they were even more dangerous than they actually were. And you'd never know which threats were real and which were performance. As I left the Convergence Hall that day, I made a decision. I was going to Earth. I needed to see this planet that produced creatures like Vesper Wilde. I needed to understand how they thought, what drove them, what made them so fundamentally different from every other species I'd encountered. Because one thing was absolutely certain. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had arrived and they'd brought their particular brand of chaos with them. And somehow, against all logic and reason, I found myself looking forward to whatever they'd do next, even if it terrified me. Especially because it terrified me.